A leader is a guardian of culture. A leader is a guardian of that field. For example, if there's conflict, there's tension in the field. If there's competition, there's tension in the field. So as a leader, I need to understand the dynamics of a group so I can recognize those tensions and work with that as an instrument and just take here and give there, like the eye of an eagle that can see all those dynamics and can be in service of the well-being of everyone.
Hello, my name is Azrya Bequer. I'm the co-founding steward at KAVANÂ and the host of the Integrated Intelligence podcast. And I'm super excited to invite you to check out the Integrated Leadership Arena, which is a membership community that we just launched, where we're going to be training our ability to trust beyond reason. This is for purpose-driven entrepreneurs, creators, leaders that are ready to lead from a different place, ready to lead with intuition, with deep listening, with compassion, with an open heart. That's really the core of what we're training together. And it's not easy. It sounds fluffy and soft, but it's actually quite the initiation to show up in the world with an open heart, with a willingness to be moved by the intelligence of life and not need to control and micromanage everything, which is kind of the style of leadership that most of us are accustomed to, is sort of this top-down approach. How do I muscle my way through it? How do I push? How do I force? How do I make it happen? What we're going to practice together is really a different way of letting our ripples of impact flow out into the world, starting from our inner impact, starting from within. So a little bit about me. I've been coaching leaders and all sorts of beautiful humans for the last 10 years, all of which have one thing in common, which is their depth and their commitments to essentially becoming the most fully expressed and high potential version of themselves. And I love working with people who have that insatiable hunger and drive to leave their mark on the world, to create that powerful ripple of impact that touches the lives of not just their own immediate circle, but beyond, and that stretches out and encompasses all the humans that maybe haven't yet had the opportunity to stop and breathe and look within. And that's what I believe this moment in human history is asking of us. It's asking us to step into a different paradigm of leadership. It's asking us to bring all of our gifts, not just our ability to execute, but also our ability to be intuitive, to create art, to create magic inside of our business, inside of our organization. That's the integration that I really want to welcome in you. So join us. We're already well underway. We're going every month with multiple live sessions. I'm bringing in some of my most incredible mentors, guides, teachers, people who've transformed my own style of leadership, have taught me so much about the way in which we can build a culture and a fabric of relating inside of our purpose-driven ventures that transforms every single human being that comes in contact with it. And I can't wait to share that with you. I hope to see you inside the arena. Astrid Brinck. Sometimes I wish you could hear how I talk about you when you're not in the room, because I was reflecting on this before this conversation and I realized that I don't think there's a single human being that I've encountered on my journey so far that has impacted me as much as you have, in specifically in the realm of leadership, facilitation, space holding, culture. Big themes. And it's funny to think about the fact that you were a consultant initially, just a consultant coming in for a little moment, a little sprinkle of your wisdom. I remember our coworker, Daniela, she had recommended that we talk to you. This was at the very beginning of our journey, and we were still very arrogant in our belief that we had it all figured out. And she was like, I really think we should talk to this Astrid lady. And we said, why do we need a consultant? I think we know what we're doing. We've been running our programs. We're doing our thing. And then when we got on the Zoom call with you and you started asking questions, it became evident very quickly how much we did not know and how much we had to learn and how many blind spots there were, which you have beautifully illuminated, sometimes painfully illuminated. And yeah, your presence in our lives has been transformative in every way. And now it's impossible to imagine KAVANÂ without you. So I'm really grateful that you're here. And I want to start with, first of all, just the fact that we are here, right? That we are having this conversation because you've shared that you have this theme of the invisible leader. leading a bit from behind, letting others find their own wisdom, their own inner guidance, and creating the space for that emergence, never needing to be in the front, not needing to be so visible. And recently there's been a shift for you around feeling called to be more visible in the world and share more of who you are and what you bring, your 33 plus years of facilitation experience, and share it more broadly with the world. So maybe we could start there, and you could share a little bit about what has that shift been for you, and what is the invisible leader?
Well, first of all, I'm so grateful and joyful to be having this conversation with you here. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing what you do. The invisible leader, for me, the invisible leader has been a way of learning. Like, I really feel like as an apprentice of life. And part of being as an apprentice is leading from listening. So it's not that I never need to be in the front, but I'm not in the front because I want to be in the front. I'm only in the front when that's needed for me. And that's what I've been trying to always be an apprentice of. So I've been leading different projects and different things and trying to be an apprentice, being a learner and being from behind, and kind of also avoiding, in a way, every time my work just grew too much, I always find a way to hide again, but not from hiding, just maybe staying in my comfort zone as well, and keeping the clarity and keeping the container that I could hold in each moment of my life. Because I think we have different abilities and different desires or different things that are good for us in different moments. And I guess I really needed to be humbled in the way that I've been humbled by life to stand where I stand today. And I know I'm going to be humbled again and again in different ways. And it's not that I'm waiting for those, but I know that there's not a place where you arrive. Mm-hmm. There's a movement. Like this morning we were talking about that, seeing another person as a movement, not as a picture. You are something that's alive and it's dynamic, and so am I. And as a leader, whether it's me or another, whether I'm supporting a leader or I'm the one leading, I am in contact, listening and speaking with that movement that is inside of us as individuals, but also that movement that is inside a system, a group, a family. And what is that requiring from me? And am I capable of giving that which is required from me? And really being that listening. And if something is required from me and I'm able to give it, then I must. And if that means stepping forward, then I step forward. If something is being required from me and I'm not able, or I don't choose to do that for whatever reason, then I must give the space to another or search for that one. So I think I was 2 days ago really mesmerized by these birds flying, and I saw 3 changes of the bird that was in front, and they were all the same. And
so they were taking turns leading the flock?
Yeah. Flock of birds. I love a song called Flock of Birds, by the way. So the flock of birds and me were becoming one as I was mesmerized looking at that. And I'm like, that's what we are. And so there's always a different moment, and not taking ourselves so serious when we're in front or when we're in back is not personal. It's just the moment, and it's a good place for that moment, you know?
I have so many questions. One, I'd love for you to give an example of what you mean by the movement, because that can feel a bit abstract. So give us a tangible example. Maybe when you've worked in a lot of organizations, you've been brought in often in moments of crisis to help with culture, to help with communication if there's conflict. So give us an example in a situation like that, where the leaders actually don't know what to do. They don't know how to lead that moment. What might be a movement there that you could elaborate on?
Well, we're all alive, and every system is alive. And that life moves in different ways, through emotions, through thoughts, through actions, through projects. Like even KAVANÂ has life, right? And that movement has a purpose. And that purpose can be guiding us. And at some moments it can be easy, and some moments it can be difficult. And some moments we can live with the diversity of all of those movements. So, for example, you have one person in the same team that wants to go left and the other one wants to go right, right? So one is having a movement in one direction and the other one has a movement in the other direction. What are we going to do now? How do we find that place where we meet, where actually it's not the place in the middle, is the place of the slowest. It's not like, oh, if you go left and if you want to go left and I want to go right, then we stay in the middle. We need to speak, we need to talk, we need to understand what's behind. And maybe one of you will understand that actually my left was my arrogance, and that your right is the best thing for the system. So when I'm in relationship, it's not so much about me, but about that which we're creating together. And so when we get out of the way, we can see the movement of that, which I'm part of, but it's not me. It's not a continuation of me, but I'm part of that which has its own life.
Got it. So the project itself, or the business or the organization, or even in a family unit, right? Like there's a movement. And would you say that movement is like the evolutionary force that is propelling that thing into its next expression, and we're just sort of getting out of the way and listening to the instructions of that? Or
I think it's both ways, especially if you're a founder, then that has your energy somehow. It has your DNA. But in the same way that we raise a child, we need to let go and allow that to have its own life. And sometimes we are so identified with that as being me. And so one of the primal things to do as a leader is to understand that I am not that.
So there's a boundary.
There's a boundary. That's not a person. And I am not that. Like, take some distance of the identification of me, so that that can be free from my need of manipulation, of making it my own again and again, or proving. So as a leader, I can be proving something that I haven't proved inside me. And then I bring that to that. And so I need to free that from my own unfinished, uncompleted movements in my life. Because usually all of these movements, like every relationship is a movement, every impulse, every desire, every story of love, every organization, every project, everything is a movement that I believe moves in cycles that have a beginning, that have a life, and have an end. And everything has an end, and everything has a beginning again, and everything will be transformed in what's next. Even me, this that you see today will not exist. I will become, who knows, maybe part of a tree, of a bird. There's a constant transformation which we cannot see because we are so focused in this 1 second of existence, right? But if we look bigger, if we have a wider perspective, we can see that everything ends. And that which I have given birth to will also end. So will I. And relating with the wisdom of endings, it's also going to allow me to detach a little bit from the identification of I am that which I give birth to, or I am that which I lead. And if I am free of that identification, then I cannot be manipulated. And I'm not in search of your recognition and your validation all the time. Because a leader that is so busy with himself, with themselves, a leader that is so busy with themselves cannot be a giver, cannot be a caretaker of that which he or she is serving.
So if we make whatever we're creating about us and our need to be recognized, seen, validated by the world, leave a legacy, whatever the thing might be, because some part of us, maybe as a child, didn't receive that validation or that recognition. Now we're using this whole elaborate mechanism of our business, our organization, our project as a way to find that internal. And then if that's true, then the stakes get really high, right? Because now I need it to be successful. Because if it's not, or if it all of a sudden it changes and morphs into something different, or if I have to be in the back seat, then all of those things threaten my own sense of self-worth, which becomes very personal. Yeah.
And I can be committed, but there's a certain commitment, yet I'm not identified.
Yeah.
It's a certain that good distance, that good place for that which is not human. Yes, but it still has its own life. How do I serve that? And then you just mentioned legacy, and for me, this is a very important subject in leaders. Sometimes we see legacy as something that starts from me, and it's going to be my legacy.
Something I leave behind. Yeah.
I live behind it. It has my name and my stamp on it. And so that's great. That's beautiful. If you start something and it can last, that's wonderful. But if every legacy is starting in this generation, what happens with the legacies that started behind us? We also need to find balance in our society with actually trying to retrieve the legacies that are behind us or that are inside of us. So it's great that we start, but it's also great if we continue, if we can have a way in us where we can retrieve that thread of a legacy from behind us, nourish it in the present, and allow that to continue in the future. You know, many indigenous wisdom speak about generations in front of me, or here in the north of America is the 7 generations. Yes, this I learned from a Lakota elder, how important it is to look at your actions for all the 7 generations in front of you. Then I'm serving a movement, and I'm not serving something that it's a continuation of me. And I see that this is the main thing of that difference. Am I serving a movement that it's bigger than me for the well-being of all, or I'm serving myself through that which I'm doing and I'm identified with in the world?
So what is the legacy you're continuing?
To me, the word legacy is related with reverence. And I have great reverence for my mother and the women behind her, and my grandmothers and the foremothers. Yes.
Not the forefathers, the foremothers. This came up recently, yeah.
And of this kindness and using power in a different way. Like my mother worked for the government in Chile, where I'm from, her entire life. And I witnessed her using that power for the well-being of all. She did not care about sites or spectrums and the fight that was going on in the surface. She cared about doing the thing and making sure that the thing, whatever that was, because she worked in different departments, was reaching the people that needed to be reached. And her teams were amazing. Every time I was in contact with that, that's what I witnessed. And I feel that I always say this, I feel that I was raised in the future. Like somehow my mother showed me the kind of leadership that I see now in the future, of a kind of integrity and service and really getting out of the way. Like it was never about her. It was always about the one receiving the benefit of whatever it is that the government was doing through the department that she was holding. So for me, that's also a legacy that I feel the responsibility of having been raised by that integrity. And so I feel an apprentice of that. Even today, I hear my mother's voice. And also I had the gift to see her aging and see all the stages of a woman's life, right? And all the things that she shared with me about my grandmother and the generosity and being a conduit for something that is bigger than me. Being a conduit for that which is coming through me, but it's for the others. I'm only here for a second. I'm a grandmother as well. And when my grandson was born, I could not understand that. I mean, I understood that from in my mind, but I could not feel it in my being, what it means to really be looking at the next generations. Like when he was born, I was pushed to the gallery of life, let's say, like I'm not in the front seat anymore. I'm all the way back there. Now my mom is gone and I'm kind of on the edge. And in the center of life is that future generation. So I feel that everything that I do is in service of that, in the same way that everything my mom did was in service of that. in a different way, in a different generation, but it's the same. So to me, the legacy is to not lose sight of that movement that comes from behind me, honor it, and allow it to continue its movement.
Mm.
So I call it the legacy of reverence.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And do you have to be, quote unquote, spiritual to have access to the legacy of reverence? Because I think a lot of us associate the word reverence with something spiritual or religious.
No, we don't have to have any spiritual idea. I think reverence has to do with a sense of humbleness and respect. And that's what the world needs today. And in fact, the followers of Confucius and the ancient Greek believed that a leader with no experience of reverence in his life could not be trustworthy, because reverence is the virtue. And there's a book that I can't remember the name of the book. It's called Reverence, actually. Reverence is the virtue that keeps leaders or humans from acting or wanting to act like gods. And this is why reverence is so important, because if I am connected to something bigger than me, meaning this company, this organization, whether it's an oil company or a personal transformation, a retreat center, whatever it is, the electric company, whatever that is, it's bigger than me. It's serving a bigger purpose. I'm not serving myself through that and my identity of me and the arrogance of me. I did this and I need all the credit for whatever. Yes, and put another thing on my wall, I did that. Good for me, kind of thing. But really, how am I serving something bigger than me through this project? And for some people, that looks like, how do I serve this team? How do I create a culture of well-being? That's what is bigger than me. I don't need to think of God, but I can be in awe of a group of humans, and I can be in awe of the ability of people to co-create. I can be in wonder of like, wow, look at these humans, what they're doing. And Lao Tse had a very beautiful description of leadership, that you would have an idea, invite a group of people to do it, and then you could step back and just witness everybody truly believing that they were all doing it together. So it wasn't about you anymore. It was about everybody. And I feel an apprentice of that. And I also feel in me the leftovers of this need to make it mine. I fall into that trap too. And so my commitment is to look at myself. And when I do that again, just look at myself with loving eyes and say, Astrid, it's okay. It's not about you. Drop it. And so I can serve. So when we talk about reverence, we're actually talking about a respect for the other, the legitimate other. Yes. Who are you? What is the unique way that life is moving through you, through your beliefs, through your projects? What is it that you're bringing into the world? And maybe it's going to be completely different than what I'm bringing into the world. And there's a quote, not even a quote, it's a text that I found, and I was never able to find who wrote it, but I loved it. I don't remember the details of it, but it says, for those that are defending or cleaning the oceans but are not aware of child abuse, thank you for doing your part. For those of you that are, fighting for child abuse and are not aware of the, I have it all in Spanish in my head right now, of the planet, changing the temperature and the catastrophe and all of that. For those of you that are defending the women's rights but are not aware of the rate of male suicides in the world. So, and it goes on and on and on. And after every statement, there's like, thank you for doing your part. And I feel that we need that in our society, like to be grateful for the part that you are doing. Yeah. And I don't need to be aware of the same things that you're aware of. And I don't need to convince you for you to be aware of the same things that I'm aware. But rather than trying to push myself onto others, what I feel that really has a much bigger, deeper effect is curiosity for the other. What are you doing? How are you showing up? How did you come to be who you are? Why are you interested in that? There's a personal story behind every passion. There's a personal story behind every project. And that story is the movement of life that is unique to each person.
Beautiful. I've gotten chills several times while you were speaking. I feel your mom in the room with us too.
Oh.
You mentioned awe and wonder, right? So reverence, and then being able to look at the legitimate other with the eyes of awe and wonder. Let's put ourselves in the position of someone who's working 80, 90 hours a week and has stress and pressure and maybe financial pressure, trying to build something in the world of significance. How do you help them find awe and wonder in the midst of that?
That's a very good question. For me, I always come with curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you need to be there? Like, is it strictly necessary for you to be there? So sometimes you can help people. You come to mentor someone, or I come to mentor someone, and they say, I want to go from A to B. And I'm not there to help that person go from A to B. Actually, I first question, why do you want to go to B? And how did you come to A? And just try to understand where that person is coming from and what they're made of and what are the uncompleted movements that they carry from the past that are making them believe that they have to go to B.
Or that created the circumstances of A in the first place, especially if those are very
Yes.
stressful circumstances.
So how can you see through the veils of what is actually the power or the movement that is having you be in that reality? So for me, the first step is to really embrace and see how that reality was created for you. And what are the tools that you have, and you cannot force anyone to go at any speed. It's also a personal choice. I don't have the answers of what is good for every person. And some people need to go through their own hell to find their heaven. Some people need to go through their own pain. And you've said it many times, the only way out is through, right? And who am I to interrupt? Who am I to intervene? Unless that person is coming to ask me, then I would answer with questions. I will not answer with answers, like to be curious. And I think, and I feel that this is the way that has been the most transformative for me as a mentor, to ask questions and to try to see beyond those veils. Why are you here? What part of you decided through the actions and the decisions that you've taken throughout your life to have the reality that you have right now? And what are the new decisions that you can make to complete that first? What is left uncompleted so that you can start making new decisions from now on?
And do you believe that 100% of our reality is created by us and by the choices and decisions we make? Or is there more to that picture?
I think there's a weaving with life and the choices that we make. And here you're touching a theme that I feel very humbled in front of, which is free will. I ask you, do we have free will? Is there such thing as free will? And so, yes, I have free will to make decisions over the reality that has been given to me. Like I was born in Chile the year dictatorship started, and I have been shaped by that reality. And I've made decisions in my life that have weaved together with that reality who I am today. And everybody has been born in a different reality.
A different context.
And a different context and a different reality. And some of us are born in privilege. Some of us are born in poverty with a different kind of privilege, maybe privilege of nature. Privilege has so many faces. Privilege is not being white. To me, the biggest privilege is those that are living peacefully with nature in their lives. Like the most privileged people that I know are the most invisible to most of us. And that's one level, but then there are forces in life that are much bigger than us. You know, we were born here, like we were thrown into this existence. And there are many ideas that maybe I believe from my religious or spiritual ideas of what story do I make about that, and what story do you make about that? Like we all have a different story that supports us find peace with the great mystery of why are we here and why were we born and who put me here? Was it me? I don't know. And where I have found the most peace is actually not knowing. Yet that allows me to revere that there's something bigger than me. That force that brought me here, that force that made me love you, that force that will take me away, that force that took my mother away, that force that brought my daughter through my body into existence, that force that brought my grandson to be born in the bathtub of my home, that force that moves us in a way that nothing else will. Where is my free will in all of that? Yeah.
Some people would call that force love.
Yeah.
I know love is a complicated word. We've talked about that many times.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
To love?
To calling that force love?
Yeah, this torrent, this current of life and this mystery. And actually we're all humans. No matter where I stand, I've worked with people that are VIP and people that are VIP in another way. All of them, for me, everyone is people. Everyone is human, and we're all human. We're all made of the same thing. This whole idea is our construct that I find it very, I feel a lot of tenderness for us that we actually believe this whole story, yeah? But at the end of the day, we're all human. Whether you're the CEO, the president of a country, the shaman sitting with a song by the fire, if you're Maria making tortillas, no matter who you are human. And that's what we need to remember. And so sometimes we see companies or leaders of all of that as separate from the rest of humanity. And I think this is the first inclusion that we need to do as a leader. I am human and I feel. I'm not separate from any of that. Yeah.
Do you think that stance that you have, that comes very naturally to you, to see everyone really kind of as equally valuable or legitimate as human beings, first and foremost, beyond their titles or their status or their accomplishments? Do you think that that has been the reason that you've, for so long, just naturally always been brought into the inner circle of powerful people, and that those people have felt safe with you, safe to ask the deep questions, safe to be vulnerable, safe to open to parts of themselves that maybe they've never had the opportunity to look at before? And do you think that's one of the core reasons that you've just continually found yourself in that line of work, especially working with high-powered men, which I know is a theme for you, which is not something you went looking for?
Yeah, I've never looked for that. It kind of it has happened, you know.
Yeah, why do you think that you
I'm not sure I can answer that question. I think I have a hunch that could be a reason why there's safety. One of my teachers, and Thich Nhat Hanh, he says, love in such a way that the other one feels free. And for me, that is to see you as equal. And at the same time, what I feel that I bring is I'm an apprentice of boundaries as well. Like I feel that one of the languages of love is clarity and clear boundaries. And not because I respect you and not because I love you and I see you as a legitimate other, I am going to be your best friend. And this is a confusion that sometimes we have. Yes, I respect you. You're the legitimate other. But in my life, I already have that innermost circle of humans. And maybe if in my life, the place for this person is there. I mean, we're 7 billion people. I cannot be best friends with everyone, but I can have respect for everyone. Right? So, and to me, how do I take care of the integrity? And I would say also that one of the ways that we create safety, and that I'm still an apprentice, is not trying to solve the other. And really asking the questions that I feel that you're bringing, or that I hear, that because people come with their questions, right? And not solving, like being a guardian or a custodian of everybody's dignity and integrity, meaning you have your questions, you find your answers, and you live your life. I cannot live your life for you. So I will not take the place of a parent. I will not take a place of anyone in your system. I will remain in my place, in my good place, and then I'll go.
You have this very strong mother energy, which has always struck me about you. And it's very nurturing and warm and powerful. Do you find that in your work that people have tried to make you their replacement mother a bit, or
all the time,
put you in the seat of the mother?
All the time, but not only the nice mother.
Yeah.
Also the bad mother.
The stern mother.
Yeah, the stern mother, all of those mothers. Because I also have, I really, sometimes I tell my daughter, like, sometimes people like me and I feel that I'm a bit hard. I can be a bit hard, but maybe because I've been really working for clear boundaries because I needed them. So this has been my personal journey.
Yeah.
I really needed boundaries and order. So I've been an apprentice of boundaries and order. And that's what's served me. So it has become also one of the tools that I can offer to others. Mm-hmm. And I love when I'm in a field where there's clarity and there are clear boundaries. And I don't step in on anybody's, feet or places. Yes, I have clarity so that I can be respectful.
And that also leads us to the good place, because, right? I want to talk about the field, because you mentioned that word, and not everyone knows what that means. Most people think of a meadow with grass growing on it when they hear the field. We use that word in a very different context, but maybe just explaining what you mean by the field, and then also how a coherent field amongst a group of people, how much the good place is important to have established in order for that to be possible. Weaving three things together.
Well, let's just bring the field to something that we can all understand.
Sure.
And I would say that the field is related with culture. Like the emotional temperature that is in a field or in the environment of a family, of an organization, you can actually feel welcomed. You can feel rejected. You can feel a warmth. You can feel a team, or you can feel the competition. So
it's like the invisible
it's the
aspect.
Invisible aspect that is so strong.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And we talk about hard skills, soft skills, and a lot of the soft skills are working with culture in different ways, from the individuals to the group. How do we collaborate or not? Is it an environment where everybody is actually collaborating, and is that naturally? And sometimes a field or an environment or a culture that is collaborative, and I am not, and I come into that, in contact with that every day, if I work there, something in me will be transformed by the culture. Something in me will be invited to do something that maybe I have never done. So culture in any organization is crucial. And this is something that the leaders do. Actually, if we think of who is a leader is a guardian of culture. A leader is a guardian of that field. For example, if there's conflict, there's tension in the field. If there's competition, there's tension in the field. So as a leader, I need to understand the dynamics of a group so I can recognize those tensions and work with that as an instrument, and just take here and give there, like the eye of an eagle that can see all those dynamics and can be in service of the well-being of everyone. But I need to be very awake and free to be able to see that. But if I'm busy with myself, trying to have everybody see me, I will not be able to ever see those invisible tensions or opportunities for growth that are in any community or culture or organization of a group of humans. That's why it's so important to understand culture. Yeah.
Okay, so coherent fields.
Oh, the coherent
and then the
field.
good place.
So, yeah, now that we understand what the field of culture is, we need to also understand the power of a field or a culture that is coherent. So if, in a lot of organizations, people go mission, vision, values. And it's a beautiful paper, or it's even a big wall. But sometimes there's no coherence between those values, the mission and that vision. Nobody's embodying that. The relationships are in the way of working together whatever is the thing that we're doing is not in coherence with that, then we're not really creating a field, a culture of coherence.
Yeah, they're empty words. They're not.
They're empty words.
Yeah.
And so as a leader, and another aspect of leadership is that I am there to encourage others to bring their gift, to magnify their talents, to try to have the conversations so I can help people find their good place to find coherence. So they go together. Mm-hmm. So in an organization, there's a good place for you. And that good place could be in the core of an organization, or it could actually be outside of the organization. What is a good place for each person at each moment? That combination, there's so many aspects to the good place, but the most simple way, good is coherent, right? Place is where we create belonging. What is the quality of belonging? Is belonging created by giving value to who you are? Or is belonging created to the value of what you do? Or is there a balance between those two? Or maybe belonging is related to what you have, or a balance between those three. Yes. So that's, good place, trying to understand that. And then what is it that you're good at? What is it that you're choosing in your life? What is it that you're willing to do? What is it that is needed and that is relevant to that context? And if those things come together, you can start trying to find that good place, right? The hierarchies, what is the order? How important it is. And here we come back to legacy. If I'm working in an organization that is 100 years old and 3, 2, 1 humans started that before with a vision, it's important to honor that vision. I can innovate. And here comes the innovation with reverence to where things started, where I take care of the culture from where it came and I'm not overstepping it. And that's something so common that we do. And it's one of the sources of conflict in a lot of organizations. When there's this need of innovation, but without honoring or respecting or giving a place to that which was.
And this brings us back to completion, which is something that you talk about a lot. Before we move on to that, though, I would love to, I think the good place is such a fascinating concept, and you've given a lot of examples in the sort of more professional context. Can you talk a little bit about the good place that is also present in family systems? And a lot of the work that you do with people starts with the relationship with the mother and the father, and finding the good place in the family system and also the good distance. So maybe just share a little bit about that. I think it's really fascinating. And then we can talk about completion, because I think they're connected.
Yeah, they're connected. And this work comes from systemic movements and systemic therapy. And it's a wonderful, when I found this, for me, was like, wow, it was a connector between a lot of the tools that I already had. And it's understanding your good place in a family system, meaning if you're the son, you're the son. But sometimes you behave as if you were the man of your mother, or you think you're better. Here comes the arrogance of the wrong place, right? I think I'm better than my mother, or I think I'm better than my father. So I take the role in the family system as a mother or a father when my place is actually being the son. So I move 2 generations behind me in my behavior, So I take the place of my grandfather, or I take the place of me being the mother or the father. And that is very common and is very unconscious. So a lot of the work from a systemic perspective, what we look for is that the good place so that you can stand as a son, and that means that you're the receiver of life. There's something that was given to you. So there's really a place for humbleness. And to me, a lot of the work of humbleness and reverence came from there, but then also one of my researches for years has been the connection between ritual, therapy, leadership, and actually the rituals that are... Ritual is human. Ritual is not a separate thing. Like you have a morning ritual. You celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah, or all these celebrations are rituals of the big community or the rituals of your family. I have special rituals with my family, traditions. All the traditions, all of those things that follow a rhythm are actually marking the rhythm of life and existence and are reminding us that we're part of something bigger. And how do we use that ritual, that rhythm, to understand that there's something bigger than us moving through us? Yeah.
Which I think is also one of the core wounds, I guess, I'll say, that I see in our modern culture, especially in the Western world, is the wound of separation. And separation in all the senses of the world or of the word, including not just the separation, maybe from our most authentic self, or from the people around us, or from our parents, or from our community, or from our planet and the natural world. Those are all very evident, but also perhaps the thing that affects all of those the most is our separation from that which is greater than us, from the current of life itself, the intelligence of life that moves us. And I think when that's not there, then we have to become very defensive, because without that, there's a lack of safety. It's like, what are we leaning into? There's nothing to lean into except for our own intellect, our own capacity to problem solve. That becomes the thing we worship. And that's very dangerous. And I think the whole world that we've seen, and a lot of the success stories that we see in business specifically, I think are a manifestation of that wound.
We all worship something. And a good question for all of us is, what am I worshiping today? What is it that I'm believing is the most important thing that I'm serving? And so how can we bring that worshiping to something that is bigger than me, but it's also something relatable? That's why we've created religions. That's why, in the indigenous wisdom, you bring it. It's so big, it's so vast. Life is so, the vastness of existence, it's very difficult to connect with that.
Yeah.
So we need representations. We need a middle point, and that's very personal.
Yeah.
And how can we help each other? And for some people, that's the romantic relationships, and for some people, it's a family, and for some people, it's a religion. And we need to respect the unique way in which all of us worship. And then we also need to be aware, because if I'm worshiping money, for example, or I'm worshiping power, then I'm going to maybe cross the boundary in where I'm taking care of everyone, and then I don't care. And I'm going to worship something superficial that is actually smaller than us. And if it's smaller than us, it's something that we created, that it's part of our construct of society, like money or power. If I'm worshiping those things, then I could cross the boundary and not take care of you on the way. And we are all subject to fall there. All of us. And so it's not those. That is human. And when I understand that I'm subject to get lost in worshiping something small, that's when, for me, the work is every day to be aware of what am I worshiping, to be aware of what am I revering, to be aware of what am I looking as, what do I see as bigger than me. And so that which you spend the most time with, some people worship their bodies, and that's where you are. Where's your focus?
Where's the majority of your life force, your attention,
Where's
your
your
thoughts?
force going? Where are you investing your energy? And that is going to speak back to you. And that can evolve. We are in constant transformation. And so the more frozen that we are in one idea, the less likely it is for us to evolve in a way that we can be in service of the well-being of all. And we have different rhythms, and we cannot make somebody wrong. At the same time, at the moment I'm saying that, I'm also thinking, like, I cannot make somebody wrong for being lost there, because maybe that place, that comfort zone that person has found of believing whatever it is that they believe, they found a safe place for maybe a reality where they were born where they didn't have the tools to cope with that. So sometimes we are so attached, because my belonging, my identity, the place where I found an island of safety was there. So It's not about facts. And this is a very important thing about the relationship with belonging and leading and understanding culture, is that all of us are going to defend that which we belong to. And it's not about facts. Facts cannot move the place where I'm anchored. Only reverence can. Only compassion can. Only bowing can. So that I can bow to what life is, to that which is bigger than me. And the compassion for who the other one is. So that I can relate with what is. And I'm not relating with what I want you to be. And I'm not relating with what I want to convince you of. I'm relating with you. Even if you are in a place that is completely opposite of me. And that, I believe, is the key for us humans. How do we relate with diversity? How do I relate with the curiosity of who you are? And again, that does not mean I need to be your best friend, but I can be curious to know, and I can have compassion, and I can say, it's okay for me that you exist in the world at the same time as me. Maybe not next to me, but at the same time as me. And I want to understand, because you represent a part of me that got lost. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And so for someone who's, I think there certainly there's those of us that are attached to that identity or that way or that worshiping that thing, even if from our perspective that thing is the smaller thing and not the bigger thing. But again, that's all opinion and potentially arrogance to even say one is better than the other. And then there are those that are at a point where they want to maybe transform that attachment, or they want to evolve beyond that attachment. They're at a moment where they recognize, wow, these patterns that I find myself in, I keep, like my husband, Benjamin, who you know very, very well, he had this moment where he was like, why do I keep chasing the dollar? Why do I keep making decisions to make me more money when I know that's not actually going to get me to where I want to go? But even though I know it's not going to get me there, I can't help myself. I can't be generous the way I want to be because something is preventing me. And so this is where I would like to come back to completion, this idea of completing something before we can move forward, which is an idea that I think in a lot of personal transformation and coaching is often skipped. There's such a deep desire to fast forward to the end goal, fast forward to the new version of you, the best version, live your best life, be your highest self. And there's parts of us that can get lost because we haven't integrated them. So tell us about completion.
The idea of completion has many different layers, but I'd like to refer today to one which is the primal circles of my life. And that is related to my childhood, to my father, to my mother. And some people cannot revere or find completion with their mothers and their fathers because it was too traumatic. And their identity has become really anchored in a place of creating distance from them. And actually, it's good to have that distance with their father or mother. And sometimes what they need is another step in between to find completion with that. And the completion with these primal circles, we know that we found it when we can say, thank you for life. And I'm going to do good things with this life. And I can move on without trying to repeat that relationship that we had. And so I will never not belong to where I come from. I will always belong to where I come from. I cannot change that. And so shame is something that we all know very well. Shame can shape us in ways that can create more shame, right? And so here comes another kind of arrogance, or another way of understanding arrogance. Arrogance is also not relating with what is. And humbleness is relating with what is. And also with what was. And also where I came from. And when I can stand, not even with pride, but with compassion, with loving eyes for my entire history and everything I experienced with my mother, with my father, with my foster family, with whatever it is that I went through, or with me growing up in dictatorship, whatever it is that our story was, yes? When I can stand and look at that with my own loving eyes, and I can say, yes, that's where I come from, and I can receive the life force that was given to me, even through pain, even through war, even through conflict that was not solved. Something in that generation completes itself. It's not only about me, but I can free many humans behind me when I find that completion, and I can look at that and say, wow, thank you. And that will change the way I share my story. Not to make it a great story, but just my story. You know?
What was the other thing?
It was about this. It was about the arrogance of not relating with what is. And
can you say more to that? I don't think that's so clear.
Okay, sure.
Why is it arrogant to not relate with what is?
Because if I don't relate with what is, I'm relating with what I want it to be.
Ah, okay. I'm projecting an idea onto it versus...
Yes, or I am running away from it. I mean, there are many options. If I don't relate with what is, which is to me one of the realms of freedom, it's relating with what is, right? Then I'm relating with my dream. I'm relating with my desire. I'm relating with what I want you to be. I'm relating with what I don't want any more of. I'm relating with no, 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 no. But relating with what is yes. And I bow. Okay, this is what it is. And from here, I will co-create with life. I will not resist that force, that movement. And let's go back to the movement. What does it mean? There's a movement, a destiny that is moving through me. If I can relate with what moves through me, I can relate with what is moving through you. And what is, in whatever way is unfolding or emerging for you. And I'm not fighting you, even if it's absolutely the opposite than me. I can relate with that and I can remain at peace, unless, of course, I'm under threat, which is a total different thing. But let's just talk about another one just being who they are. I don't need to prove who I am. I don't need to make you wrong and make myself right, or the other way. I don't need to make you right and make myself wrong. I can relate with what is. And only when I relate with what is, I can connect. Reverence is connection. And all that we need is connection. And as a leader, if I'm not connected to the culture, if I'm not connected to the others, if I'm not connected to the team that I'm working with, how is real, true collaboration or co-creation possible? Yes? So, and for that, I need to relate with who you are, what is through you. I need to relate with who I am, what is through me. But if I'm not seeing you, I cannot connect with you. And it's very scary to relate with what is. Because relating with what is means to relate with the unknown. So it's much easier to relate with the story I have in my mind about you. And to fake the connection. But it's so scary to relate with the unknown that will move through you. But it's so much more alive and full of color.
And exciting.
And exciting.
Yeah.
So
we're always perpetually on the edge of our seat. Like, what's going to happen next?
Yes.
Yeah. It's exciting.
What now?
What now?
Like, what now? How is love going to move me now? Where is love going to take me now? And it's not a journey outside of myself, but especially inside of myself. How is it going to move me, and how am I going to break through my own resistances and my own arrogance of believing that I was this or I was that? I recognize so much arrogance in my own life. And I recognize more that is still with me here, and breaking through my own arrogance of thinking that I know, or the arrogance of relating with what I wanted it to be and trying to force destiny was creating so much pain for me. And it's still there. And I'm still learning. And that's where my work is. My personal work.
Yeah. I feel like this is a good moment maybe to talk about inner impact. Because as we've been with KAVANÂ, we've spent hundreds of hours talking about what are we doing? Why do we exist? What is our mission, vision, values? We've gone through those exercises and we've had those conversations, and we've, looked at where we are embodying them and where we are not. And for those listening, you can imagine if you have Astrid as part of your core team, like there's no getting away with anything ever. So yeah, it's been a process, let's just say. And And so we've really in our mission for KAVANÂ, which is to accelerate personal transformation that ignites real world impact, we use this word impact, right? And real world impact, which is an interesting thing to think about. Like, okay, what does that mean, right? Most people would relate to that as social impact or environmental impact, external impact, impact that's happening outside of our individual, bodies, hearts, minds. And when we went to the World Economic Forum in Davos, and we had the opportunity to share there, on Davos, the outskirts of it, we talked about, well, what do we want to talk about there? What is it that we feel if we had one message to bring to the leaders of this world, what would it be? And we really landed on this idea of inner impact. And I'll speak more about that, but how would you describe the inner and the outer impact?
Well, I'm glad you asked this. And I cannot separate this from like the core bulk of work in my life, which is the inner freedom process, which is related to the external impact, yes. And we spoke about this, the internal impact and the external impact. And for me, that inner impact idea, the way I see it, is finding inner freedom. And when I ran into these two words, I was like, that's it. I've been doing this work for many, many years. And how do I find, and what are the ripples, and how does it relate with the external impact when I am free to be who I am, when I am free to relate with what is, when I am free to participate in the world with who I am and relating with what is, and then I am free to be in reverence of something bigger than me. To me, these are the four realms of inner freedom that are related directly with what we call inner impact. When I find that freedom inside of me, and not fully, like it's a journey.
Sure.
And I think this is also important. It's like
there's no finish line. Like
there's
you made it. You're innerly free forevermore. Congratulations.
Yes, and that's why it's such a humbling like journey. Like the first, second, third, fifth, 10th mountain of your own internal freedom. It's a never-ending process. Yet the commitment to be in the process, it's what makes the difference. And I feel that the impact, as is above is below, as is inside is outside, like the ripples of really being anchored in your heart with integrity, with coherence, with owning your story, relating with what is, knowing how to use your real power of love, of compassion, of presence, of collaboration, of co-creation, of being truly present for what is happening right now, that is going to create ripples all around you. It's just inevitable. It's the inevitable external ripples that come from being anchored in that place. And it's scary, it's painful, it's joyful, it's all of the above. But if you're committed, then your life will be fully colored. And this reminds me of me working with endings. I've been very close to working with death and being with my beloveds that have left. I've been very close to them. And conversations with people that are close to dying or leaving this experience, their biggest regrets is not what they did, but the biggest regret of those that are about to leave is what they did not do. The things they did not allow themselves to experience. It's not even the doing, but the feelings that they not allowed to go through their bodies. The ecstasy, the pain, the grief, the multicolored life that they realized that it's possible, and they did not allow it to move through them. So I don't need to go anywhere, but just allow life to move through me, and be with that. And it's not the search of happiness. I find that just so confusing for people. We're not here to search for happiness, but for totality. Yes, for just being fully here with what is. And yes, it's painful. And for some of us, it's more painful. And some of us have more privilege. And some of us have gone through like crazy stories. I've worked with people that have been in war. I've been with people that have lost their children in a tsunami. I've worked with great, deep grief and pain in my life, very close personally and with the people that I have served. So I'm not coming from a place of serving only privileged humans, really deep pain. And at the end of the day, we're all human, and we're all longing to feel alive, to feel belonging, to feel that we're worthy, to feel that we're right the way we are. And guess what? You are. No matter where you are in the world, what it is that you're experiencing, you're worthy to be here, even in the most painful experiences. Because that experience that you're having is the experience that I'm having. Right now, I'm not in the deepest pain, but I've been in the dark night of the soul of my life, of this existence, of this movement. And they're not comparable. Sometimes we want to compare the pain of another with the pain of the other, or the joy of another of the joy of another. Comparing only brings us apart, and comparing is part of arrogance. And actually just honoring who you are, even if it's very different to mine, even if your joy looks bigger than mine, even if your joy looks more colorful than mine, I need to learn to relate with the way joy goes through this vessel, through this human, and so that I can relate with the world, with how life relates or moves through you in a different way. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Full spectrum aliveness.
Yes.
Something we talked a lot about in the
Yes.
book. We talked a lot about, well, what do people really want? You know, there's everything you want, think you want, and then there's everything you didn't know you wanted. And yeah, I think happiness is one dimension, one note in the symphony of life. But what we're really after, if we're really honest, is the full spectrum. We want the whole orchestra. We want the high notes and the low notes and everything in between. And sometimes we want the harmony, and sometimes we want the dissonance. We want the clashing of the tones, so that that tension can kickstart something new and catalyze some new evolution or some new awareness through the difficulty also of it. And this also leads me to a segue, I guess, into yesterday we went for a walk on the beach to talk about this conversation, what we wanted to, what themes we wanted to touch. And a lot of the things that you've brought in this conversation so far, whether it be listening or the ability to feel fully, right? To not resist what's here, but to feel it fully, let the movement complete through. Even the reverence piece, I think all of these, to me, I would put them under the bucket of what would be maybe referred to as more omega qualities. We use this term alpha and omega. If you've listened to the other podcast episodes, you've probably heard me explain it. Alpha being more of like the intellectual, the achieving, and then omega being more of the intuitive and the receiving side. And so in leadership, our examples of leadership, mostly, because we still live in a patriarchal culture, are more of the alpha side of the spectrum. And the things that we celebrate in leaders are qualities of alpha, right? That conviction of knowing the path, and the clarity and the pillar, and the willingness to work hard and work harder than everyone else and push through, and all of those qualities that are needed and important and have gotten us to where we are. Like, there would be no human race without that. Like, we needed those things, the hunter-gatherer needed to go out into the world and have those qualities to protect the tribe and let life thrive. But there's also been this massive suppression of the omega, or the other side of the pole, the more of those invisible aspects, or those subtle realm aspects. So what do you see there in terms of, think of, the larger collective movement as we are going through a time of intense change and transformation on the planet and in the systems that we live inside of, technology, all of these factors, huge forces that are shaping and moving us. Could you share a little bit about the integration of alpha and omega, and what you're seeing also as you work with leaders? Is there a longing that you're seeing for more of a balanced relationship to these polarities?
I love that you bring the word longing. Yes. Because I do see a longing, and I do see a need to find balance. And we've been creating a construct of our society based in competition, based in being better, based in debate. And as you said, all of these qualities are necessary. And just a parenthesis that we're all wired different.
Mm-hmm.
And some humans are wired to be leaders, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. And meaning leaders to be in the front sometimes, to know, to be more curious, to explore more.
Pioneering energy.
Pioneering energy, and that's necessary. And also, just to bring this together with something you said before, that we want the whole spectrum. I wouldn't say that we all want the whole spectrum. Like, we have a whole spectrum, and some people just want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Or some I love scars. I think that the beauty of scars, that it's a beauty of a life lived, right? And we have scars that are physical, but we have some scars that are emotional, and in the scars in our nervous system. And some people need to learn how to live with the scars in their nervous system, and this is the spectrum where they can live life. And actually trying to take them to the full spectrum will not serve them. And some people need to be on this side of the spectrum, and that's where their nervous system feels at ease. And yes, if they do personal transformation, maybe they will choose, but maybe not, and that's okay.
Sure.
I really wanted to say that, because I find that important. Sometimes we create unintentional shaming by making this right or that wrong, and I just want to make sure that we all feel that we're right exactly where we are and with where we're choosing, and we don't need to become something that we're not. With that said, bringing this to the integration, I think that this piece that we're missing, I feel, well, two things that are related. One is diversity. Like, the way we've been operating with the masculine as soldiers, wars, making everybody the same. It's creating a certain, an army of humans for everything, not only in war, but in society. Everything works the same, and we just do repetition, right? Especially since the early 1900s, where the revolution happened and we started creating everything in series. That has become so obvious, but that's not where it started.
You mean the Industrial Revolution?
Yes, the Industrial Revolution, but even from before, we've been trying to do things in a way that we can repeat. We have repetition and all of the same, trying to get the individual out of the way, diversity. I feel that our first uncompleted circle that is making us suffer is the idea that we're separated from nature, or that nature is something else. And actually, we are nature, and it moves through us. That's what is actually moving through us. And that reconnection with nature is something that can bring reverence back, and the balance of the way that we lead. Because we see nature as something that it can be translated into resources. And nature is not a source of resources. As our friend said, about human source, nature is the ultimate source for us. Or last night I read something really beautiful, that the earth has a mother. Like, if you connect with the force that created this planet, right? But it's too scary for most of us to expand, to actually have a vision that is more macro, like the overview effect. What happens to the astronauts when they go out in Spain? In Spain, what happens to the astronauts when they go out in space? They can actually see, and there's no divisions of countries. There's this cell floating in a dark space, and you start becoming more existential. And I believe that we need to be more existential in an everyday basis, bringing that connection with the reverence again to nature. If I know that I am nature, I will be in awe and wonder with the leaf, or with the water that is moving outside, creating all these ripples. Yes, I can be in awe with that, and therefore I will not be wanting to use that as a resource. And right now, a lot of our life, even our economic design, it's all about growth
and extraction.
And this eternal growth. We live life as if nature could give us all of that, but we're not giving back. And so for me, the balance comes with Aini, which is a Peruvian wisdom. It's called the balance of reciprocity, the law of reciprocity. I cannot take more than what I'm giving. So if me as an organization, I'm going and I'm taking from life and nature 100 tons of source, and I'm not giving back anything, that's where the balance, that's where we lost the balance.
Yeah.
That's what I see. I'm sure that there's many ways to see the balancing of the masculine or the feminine, or the left and the right, and the above and below, and life and death, and all of this. For me, that's something that it's really in color, to see and to witness. And how can we reconnect with the equilibrium that nature has both inside of us and outside of us? Like, nature's always work. It's like, you don't know how you heal. You're not thinking, if you cut yourself and then it's healed and then you have a scar, you're not actually doing it with your mind. Now I'm going to heal. It happens because you are nature, and nature is healing itself through you, right? So reconnecting with nature is where the mother and the father, the left and the right, the alpha and the omega, the invisible leader, the leader that is in the front, the woman and the man, all the paradoxes that exist in life are one in nature. And if we remember something so simple, I feel that the answer for us is so simple, and it's right in front of us, but we're not looking at it. It's come back home. Take off your shoes, walk outside. I've done that with leaders. Like, let's go outside, take off your shoes and feel the earth. Yes. And where are you as a human? Where are you standing as a human? Are you in that integration? And actually, the idea of separation, it's our mental understanding, but in reality, it's all together. And because in our mind it's separated, we have created a system and a society that is in that separation tension all the time, in a way that is not healthy anymore. And we are overusing the resources. But I know in my heart that if the billions of humans that are on Earth, we connected with the nature that we are, not connected with nature outside of us, but we connected with the nature that we are, just a little more, balance and equilibrium in our constructed society and civilization will start being in balance with all of life on Earth.
It's a beautiful prayer and intention, and hopefully soon to be reality, that we all access that home.
I think it's important to have faith. I don't think I will see that in my lifetime. But to me, keeping that faith is my love for my grandson and for the generations in front of me. And the same as a vision in an organization that is unattainable sometimes. I feel that we need, and that's my reverence as well, to the vision that we will remember together.
And also acknowledging the collective longing for it, because if there's no longing, then we never get there.
Yes.
But if there's the longing, if we see the spark of, even if someone is so completely disconnected from any and all of that, but some part of them has a longing to remember, to come home, to reconnect, and to simplify, ultimately, then that little tiny spark can be nourished, and we can give it oxygen. We can fan the flame, and that flame can grow and illuminate the hearts and minds of billions of humans very quickly.
Yeah. And the understanding that we're rich. We are so rich in the simplicity of life. We need very little. Yet I see people that are so poor, that only have money, or only have stuff, or only have cars, or only have houses. And I see people that are so rich, that are one with existence, and they're allowing all of that to move through them. So how can we, and here comes another paradox. It's like, okay, I understand, let's say I'm a leader and I understood all of this, and now I want to help the world. Okay. And I want to create impact in the world. How do you do it listening and not believing that you have the answer? Because that's the other extreme that is happening. A lot of people and leaders, there's a huge movement of impact, and we want to create impact in the world. And I just had a conversation 2 days ago with a woman that is creating projects for weavers in Colombia, and how most of the projects that are going there or anywhere in the world, people with privilege and with an awakening are going, we're going to solve it for you. But we take purpose away, we take meaning away. And the best way to support is having a dialogue and see if they want our help first and foremost. So we also honor the legitimate other in those places where I think I want to have my impact. But do they want my impact? And maybe the help that they need is different. And how can we create dialogues? And that's what nature does. Nature is interconnected and having dialogues all the time. So it's not a one-way street ever. It's always giving and receiving. Again, it's Aini. Yes? So if I am more aware and I have found a certain level of freedom, and now I'm like, okay, I don't want to own 4 cars. I'm going to sell 3 cars. I'm just going to, I can only be in 1 car at a time. Why do I need 3 or 4 cars? Okay, I let go of all these excessive consumption things that I have accumulated and I want to help others. Great. And hold your horses. Like, listen. And maybe this could be another conversation, another time with listening. How do we listen to the legitimate other, whether it's a person or a community? If I want to help them, do I have the right and the consent to help them? Do I have the right dialogue to help them? Is my help an intervention? Or is my help really needed? So, how can I be a custodian of that dignity of myself and the other and all of us? Is also something that I ponder upon very often. Yeah.
For the person that's listening that maybe has 4 cars in the garage and feels shamed by what you just said, what would you say to them? Unintentional shaming.
Unintentional shaming. Well, I was talking about the one that realized that they don't need the other 3 cars.
But maybe this person feels like they do
But maybe
need
if
them.
somebody feels that they need the 3 cars and they can have them, then go ahead and have them. I'm no one to say don't have them.
But hopefully you enjoy them and you use them.
Exactly.
Because to me, that's the piece, is like coming back to movement. When things are accumulated and they're stagnant and they're just sitting there because they gave us some momentary hit of like validation or even joy or whatever, satisfaction. But then that's it. Then we need the next thing. We need the next novel thing. And then the movement stops. Right? And in nature, everything keeps moving and everything is resourceful and everything is nourishing the other thing. So I think as someone who has, I have material things. I have a large home currently. The only way that I know I can feel really good about that is if I'm putting bodies in beds and I'm sharing the living room and I have a fridge full of food and people are coming and eating all the time and the space is full of life and it's being used. But if it's just me and my husband and the rooms are empty and it's there, over time it starts to feel off, like the Aini or the balance is no longer there. And so I think that's just an interesting thing to sit with, is it's not that we can't have beautiful things or we can't have like large amounts of things, but how are we circulating them?
Yeah, and sometimes you need to go through the realization that this is too much.
Yeah.
And you need to feel the weight of all the things that you have in order to have a breakthrough.
Yeah.
And we cannot take that breakthrough from another person.
Yeah.
And so who are we to judge the other?
Yeah.
But it's an invitation for each one of us to see where we are and what it is that we need today. Like, I have this beautiful practice every trip that I do. Every time I go, whether it's 2 months or 2 weeks, when I come back, I go through the physical stuff that I have, clothes or whatever, and I give away to others. That I allow movement. I don't like to own things that I'm not using. Or I don't even believe in ownership. I don't like to steward things that I'm not using, right? And so I try as best as I can to give them movement and then to give them to somebody that is actually really going to use them, including money. Like, how can we allow the resources to move in all the directions? And that doesn't mean that I have to give everything away and I'm Santa Teresita. No, but to really be a custodian of the movement. Like, interconnectedness and movement are two crucials, and equilibrium are some of the fundamentals of nature that are also part of the work that I've been doing for many years, looking at the connection between the fundamental principles in nature, and how are they translated to our human nature with nature. Yes. And understanding that we are nature. So it's not an external thing projected on us, but I see it from my humanness, and I'm immersed in nature and I'm listening, and then I realize that all along I was listening to myself.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your wealth of wisdom. And every time I talk to you, I learn. It's a beautiful thing. And yeah, is there anything else that you feel inspired to share with those listening before we close?
That it's okay to be who you are today and to be where you are today. And embrace that, no matter what that reality is. And from embracing it, maybe something else will emerge. Life is movement. Even this too shall pass. Whether it's joy, whether it's pain, we're always in movement. And it's wonderful that you are who you are and that you're here.
And thank you for being here with us and for giving us the most precious thing you have, the most valuable thing you have, which is your time and your attention and your energy. Yeah, grateful to be able to have these conversations.
Me too.
I feel they're deeply needed in the world right now.
Thank you. Thank you for doing what you do, and thank you for spearheading KAVANÂ and being the steward that you're meant to be.
Aho, so it is.
Yeah, thank you.